This is a fictional American romance story created using AI for entertainment purposes only, intended strictly for audiences 18 years and older and not suitable for children under 18.
The house in Scarsdale was made of glass and restraint. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the quiet street like a curated photograph. At night, the reflections turned the interior into a stage set. Cream sofas, abstract art, a dining table carved from reclaimed oak. Daniel Harper often stood by those windows after dinner, watching his own faint reflection layered over the darkness outside, as if he were already half removed from his own life. Olivia moved differently these days. He noticed it first in the pauses, the way she would read an email and let her thumb hover over the screen a second too long. The way she began carrying her phone from room to room, even to the laundry area in the basement. Small shifts, adjustable, deniable. "Are you coming to bed?" she called one Thursday night, her voice light, almost musical. "In a minute," Daniel replied, closing his laptop. He worked at the kitchen island, spreadsheets glowing in neat columns. Officially, he was a senior analyst for a respectable but unremarkable investment firm in Stamford. Olivia sometimes introduced him at parties with a polite smile and a change of subject. Daniel did not mind, or at least he told himself he didn't. Upstairs, the bedroom lights dimmed. He could hear the faint vibration of her phone against the marble nightstand. Once, then again. When he entered, Olivia was sitting up against the headboard, the silk of her robe catching the soft lamplight. Her expression was neutral in a way that felt rehearsed. "Long day?" he asked. "Board presentation prep," she said quickly. "Ethan's pushing for a new campaign strategy before Q4. Ethan. The name had become a quiet resident in their home. Ethan Caldwell, managing director. Visionary. Recently separated, according to company gossip that floated through Olivia's wine-scented stories. Danielle nodded. "You've been working late a lot." "That's how promotions happen, Danielle." The sentence wasn't cruel. It was factual, precise, like a line drawn with a ruler. He slipped into bed, the mattress dipping slightly toward her. For a moment, their shoulders touched. Olivia's phone lit up again. She angled it away instinctively, a reflex so fast it almost looked like choreography. Daniel looked at the ceiling. He did not ask who was texting at 11:47 p.m. Instead, he said softly, "We are still on for the Miller's dinner Saturday, right?" She hesitated, just half a breath. "Actually, Ethan invited me to a client thing in the city. It's important." "Of course," Daniel said. Silence stretched between them, thin but durable. Later that night, when Olivia's breathing deepened into sleep, Daniel's eyes remained open. The room was dark except for the faint charging light on her phone. He turned his head slightly and saw her screen illuminate once more, an incoming message preview visible for only a second. "Can't stop thinking about earlier." The sender's name disappeared before he could read it fully, but he didn't need to. Daniel closed his eyes. What Olivia never saw was the way his expression changed. Not broken, not furious, but thoughtful, as if he were calculating something far beyond the dimensions of their bedroom. In the morning, he made coffee as usual, French press, 2 mugs. Olivia came downstairs in a tailored navy dress, heels in hand. She kissed his cheek, a brief, perfumed gesture. "I might be late tonight," she said. Daniel handed her the mug. "Drive safe." At the door, she paused. "You're quiet lately." "I'm listening," he answered. She studied him, searching perhaps for accusation, for jealousy, for a crack she could lean against. Finding none, she gave a small nod and left. The garage door closed. The house returned to its curated stillness. Daniel stood alone in the kitchen, phone in hand now, not hers but his own. He opened an encrypted email account few people knew existed. Subject: Codeware Media. Updated valuation. He read in silence, then typed a brief reply. Proceed as planned. Outside, the neighborhood remained immaculate. Inside, something had already begun shifting quietly, irreversibly. He would not raise his voice. He would not beg. And when the moment came, he would leave without taking anything that wasn't already his. The Miller's dining room was designed for performance. Crystal glasses caught the chandelier light and fractured it into polite brilliance. A framed Yale diploma hung behind Richard Miller's chair, as if even dinner required credentials. Outside, early autumn pressed cool air against the windows of the Scarsdale cul-de-sac, but inside the room, everything felt curated and warm. Olivia thrived in rooms like this. She leaned forward slightly as she described the campaign launch in Soho, her voice confident, precise. "We're repositioning the brand to target Gen Z without alienating legacy investors," she said, smiling at the table. "Ethan thinks it could double engagement by Q1. Daniel watched her from across the table, not suspiciously, not accusingly, just watching. Across from him, Laura Miller laughed too loudly. "Olivia, you always land on your feet. Daniel, you must be proud." "I am," Daniel replied, and he meant it. Dinner unfolded in the comfortable rhythm of affluent suburbia private school admissions, rising property taxes, a quiet joke about the Metro North delays. Olivia's phone lay face down beside her wine glass. For once, she had left it there. But her tablet used earlier to show Laura a vacation photo remained propped against a decorative bowl of lemons near the center of the table. No one noticed when it lit up. The sound was soft, a discreet chime. Laura glanced down first, then Richard. Their expressions shifted almost imperceptibly, like a shadow crossing water. Olivia followed their gaze. Daniel did not move. On the screen, clear and bright against the darkened dining room, was a message banner. "Ethan, I can still feel your hands on me. Tonight was reckless, and I loved it." Silence did not fall immediately. It thinned. Conversation stumbled mid-sentence, like a car missing a gear. Olivia's face drained of color, then flushed too quickly. "Oh my God," she whispered, lunging for the tablet. "It's nothing," she said too fast. "Work joke. He's Ethan's ridiculous sometimes." No one laughed. Laura picked up her wine glass. "We should maybe bring out dessert?" Richard cleared his throat. "Yes, cheesecake." Daniel remained seated, hands folded lightly in front of him. His expression was unreadable, not frozen, not wounded, merely still. Olivia avoided his eyes. Dessert was served. Plates clinked, forks scraped porcelain. No one mentioned the message again, but it hung above the table like a second chandelier, impossible to ignore. When they finally stepped outside into the chilled night, the air felt sharper than usual. Olivia walked quickly toward their car. "Daniel, wait." He unlocked the vehicle. "I'm right here." Inside, the doors shut with a muted thud. For a moment, neither spoke. The dashboard clock glowed 10:42 p.m. "It wasn't what it looked like," Olivia began. He started the engine. "What did it look like?" She turned toward him. "You're not even angry?" He considered that. "Should I be?" Her breath caught. "Daniel, don't do this." "Do what?" "This calm thing. This passive silence. It's infuriating." He pulled onto the quiet street, headlights sweeping over manicured hedges. "I didn't raise my voice. That's the problem." Her tone sharpened. "You never raise your voice. You never fight for anything. You just exist." The words hovered between them. "I work," he said evenly. "I come home. I show up." "You hide," she snapped. "You hide behind spreadsheets and safe choices. You're content being invisible." He did not interrupt. "You have no idea what it's like," she continued, her voice trembling now not entirely from anger. "To be in rooms where everyone is building something bigger, risking something, wanting more." "And Ethan wants more?" Daniel asked softly. She hesitated only a second. "Ethan believes in me." The sentence landed harder than the message had. They reached their driveway. The garage door lifted slowly, mechanically obedient. Daniel parked, turned off the engine. In the sudden quiet, Olivia's breathing felt loud. "I didn't plan for it to happen," she said, staring at the windshield. "But you and I, we've been drifting for years. You're comfortable being small. I'm not." Small. Daniel finally looked at her. There it was, the narrative forming in real time, her shame rearranging itself into justification. "I see," he said. "You don't," she replied quickly. "You don't see anything unless it's right in front of you." He opened his door. "Daniel," she called, a flicker of uncertainty breaking through her composure. "Say something." He paused in the garage light, shadows cutting across his face. "I am," he said quietly. "I'm listening." And that frightened her more than if he had screamed. Inside the house, the walls of glass reflected them back two figures standing several feet apart, already divided by something neither chandelier nor apology could soften. Olivia went upstairs first. Daniel remained below for a long time, staring at the dark screen of his own phone. He did not check hers. He did not demand proof. Instead, he opened a secure messaging thread. Subject line: Caldwell Media, discretion priority. His reply was brief: accelerate review timeline. He locked the phone. Upstairs, a door closed. And for the first time, Olivia felt something unfamiliar creep into her certainty, not guilt, but doubt. Daniel had not exploded, he had absorbed, and she did not yet understand what that meant. The house felt different the morning after the dinner. Not louder, not colder, just rearranged. Sunlight slipped through the tall windows in long, indifferent beams. The kitchen still smelled faintly of roasted coffee and lemon cleaner. On the surface, nothing had shifted. But Olivia moved through the space like someone walking through a hotel suite she was about to check out of. Daniel was already dressed when she came downstairs. Navy blazer, open collar, no tie. "You're going into the city?" she asked. "For a few meetings." She nodded as if meetings were the only language left between them. Olivia poured herself coffee but didn't drink it. "We need to talk." Daniel waited. She set the mug down carefully. "Last night was humiliating." "For you?" he asked, not sharply. "For both of us," she exhaled, "but especially for me." He leaned lightly against the counter, hands in his pockets. "What would you like to say?" The question unsettled her. It placed responsibility back into her hands. "I can't live like this," she said finally, "with someone who doesn't react, who doesn't fight. Do you know what it feels like to be exposed like that and look over and see your husband calm? You wanted a scene? I wanted something real." Her voice cracked for the first time. Not this polite distance, not this constant sense that you're somewhere else entirely. Daniel studied her face. There were faint shadows under her eyes, fatigue or guilt, he couldn't tell. "I didn't think yelling would make it less true," he said. She flinched. The word true hovered between them like glass about to shatter. Olivia straightened. Something in her expression hardened, the way it did before she entered the boardroom. "Maybe we've outgrown each other." "Maybe," he agreed. The agreement surprised her. "I need more than this house," she continued. "More than safe investments and suburban dinners. I need someone who challenges me, who's ambitious, who doesn't settle." "And you think I've settled?" Daniel said. "Yes," the word came quickly, too quickly. A silence followed that felt heavier than accusation. "I won't apologize for wanting more," she added, softer now. "I'm not asking you to." "Then what are you asking?" He considered that for a moment. "Honesty." She looked away first. "Fine," she said. "Yes. Ethan and I, there's something there. It's not just physical. He sees me. And I don't?" She hesitated. "You see parts, the manageable parts." Daniel nodded once, as if filing the statement away. "And what do you want?" he asked. The question startled her. It was the first time he had framed the future as a choice rather than an outcome. "I think you should move out," she said quietly. There it was, not screened, not thrown like a weapon, delivered like a business decision. "For a while," she added quickly, "to give us space." "Space for what?" "For me to figure out if this marriage is still viable." Viable. They had reduced 11 years to a term from a quarterly report. Daniel looked around the kitchen, the polished counters, the carefully chosen pendant lights, the life they had assembled piece by piece. He had paid for more of it than Olivia realized. Not from his salary, from accounts she had never asked about. "When?" he asked. Her throat tightened. She had expected resistance, negotiation, maybe even pleading. "Soon," she said. "This week." He nodded again. Upstairs, he packed with unsettling efficiency. One suitcase, 2 suits, a few casual shirts. His watch collection remained in the drawer. So did the framed photograph from their honeymoon in Napa. Olivia stood in the doorway, arms folded tightly across her chest. "You're not going to argue?" she asked. "No." "You're not going to try to convince me?" He zipped the suitcase. "You've already convinced yourself." "That's not fair. Neither is asking someone to leave their home." She swallowed. "It's my home too." "I know." The words carried no bitterness. That was what made them unbearable. He carried the suitcase downstairs. The sound of its wheels across the hardwood echoed more than it should have. At the front door, he paused. "This isn't weakness," Olivia said suddenly, almost defensively. "I just refuse to shrink my life to fit someone else's comfort." Daniel met her eyes. "I hope you get everything you're reaching for," he said. It wasn't sarcasm. That frightened her more than anything else he could have said. He opened the door. Cool air rushed in. For a fraction of a second, she expected him to turn around, to claim something, to remind her of history, of vows, of shared years. He didn't. He stepped outside and closed the door behind him with careful finality. Through the glass panels, Olivia watched him walk down the driveway. He did not look back. Inside, the house felt larger. and emptier than she had imagined it would. Up the street, Daniel placed the suitcase in the trunk of his car. He sat behind the wheel for a moment, hands resting calmly on the steering column. Then he picked up his phone and dialed the number saved under initials only. "It's time," he said simply. He ended the call and drove away from the life she believed she had just outgrown. Behind him, the house of glass reflected only one figure now. And for the first time, Olivia felt the tremor of something she could not name. Not regret, not yet. Daniel did not move into an apartment that matched the house in Scarsdale. He chose a furnished unit in Tribeca, clean lines, neutral walls, temporary by design. The kind of place executives rented between acquisitions. No framed photographs, no lingering scent of shared history. Just glass, steel, and silence. The first night there, he stood by the wide industrial window overlooking the Hudson River. Barges moved slowly against the current. Manhattan glittered without intimacy. He felt no dramatic outbreak, only clarity. On the kitchen counter lay two phones, one personal, one encrypted. He picked up the second, set up the Palo Alto meeting, he told the voice on the other end, and loop in Miami. "I want updated projections on Coldwell Media before the next quarter closes." There was no hesitation in the response. Understood. Daniel ended the call and poured himself a glass of water. No whiskey. No self-pity rituals. He had anticipated this pivot long before Olivia had found the courage to say the words, "Move out." In truth, he had begun preparing the exit years ago. Not from the marriage, from invisibility. Through layered LLCs and quiet seed investments, Daniel had built Harper Strategic Holdings, a private equity structure that specialized in distressed but scalable tech and marketing firms. He never attached his name publicly. Press releases listed managing partners and advisory boards. Daniel preferred shadow over spotlight. Olivia had once teased him for reading financial reports in bed. She had never asked what they were for. Across the river, in a high-rise near Columbus Circle, Olivia was learning that secrecy had been half the thrill. Ethan's apartment was sleek, curated in charcoal and chrome. He had insisted she stay the night more often now that Daniel was gone. "You don't have to sneak out anymore," Ethan said one evening, loosening his tie. "You're free." The word felt heavier than it had during whispered hotel encounters. Free. Olivia stood near the window, staring down at the city. "It's not finalized." "It will be," he replied confidently. "These things always are." At work, the dynamic had shifted too. What once felt illicit now felt exposed. Colleagues noticed the proximity. The way Ethan's hand lingered on her back during meetings. The way decisions tilted subtly in her favor. With exposure came scrutiny. Board members questioned recent spending. A major client delayed contract renewal. Cash flow tightened in ways Ethan dismissed publicly, but studied privately at night. "It's temporary," he told Olivia over late dinners at his dining table. "Market correction. Nothing we can't handle." But she began to see what she hadn't before, the edge beneath his charm. The impatience. The risk masked as vision. Meanwhile, Daniel flew west. Palo Alto in early spring smelled faintly of eucalyptus and ambition. In a conference room overlooking Sand Hill Road, he sat at the head of a table while venture partners reviewed digital projections. Coldwell Media is over-leveraged, one analyst noted. Their expansion was aggressive. Daniel nodded. And their client retention? Declining. He leaned back slightly, fingers steepled. "Prepare a minority position option. Quietly. You want controlling interest? Eventually." He did not mention Olivia. He did not need to. Back in Manhattan, Olivia scrolled through industry news one morning before work. A headline caught her eye. Private equity interest circles mid-tier marketing firms amid downturn. No names listed, just a suggestion of movement beneath the surface. At the office, Ethan was on edge. "There are rumors," he admitted when she asked. "Some investment group sniffing around." "Are we stable?" she pressed. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We're solid." That night, Olivia returned to the Scarsdale house alone. The silence no longer felt empowering. It felt vast. She walked into the bedroom and opened Daniel's side of the closet. Empty hangers swayed slightly when she brushed past them. For the first time, she wondered what he was doing at that exact moment. If he was lonely, if he missed her. In Tribeca, Daniel closed his laptop after reviewing acquisition models. On the screen, Coldwell Media's valuation fluctuated in neat digital increments. He stared at the numbers for a long time. Then he minimized the window and opened a different file, one labeled simply OH. Inside were archived screenshots, bank statements, timelines. Not to weaponize, to remember. He had known before the dinner. He had known before she asked him to leave. And he had chosen silence not because he lacked ambition, but because timing, in finance and in life, was everything. Outside his window, Manhattan pulsed with restless energy. Daniel turned off the lights and let the city reflect back at him in the glass. He was no longer the man Olivia had measured against other husbands at suburban dinner tables. He was building something she had never bothered to see, and when the moment arrived, she would not mistake him for small again. The first sign wasn't dramatic. It was a meeting rescheduled, then another. Then a client who had always renewed automatically requested a strategic reassessment period. At Caldwell Media's Midtown office, the energy shifted from confident urgency to controlled panic. The glass conference rooms no longer felt transparent. They felt exposed. Olivia noticed the change in Ethan's posture before she saw it in the numbers. He stood straighter during staff briefings, voice louder, optimism sharper, as if volume could compensate for uncertainty. "We are positioned for long-term growth," he insisted one Monday morning, pacing at the head of the table. "Short-term fluctuations don't define us." But later that afternoon, in his private office with the blinds half drawn, he loosened his tie and stared at a spreadsheet on his screen. "Talk to me," Olivia said quietly, closing the door behind her. He didn't look up immediately. "Our liquidity buffer isn't where I want it." "How bad?" He leaned back, exhaling through his nose. "Not catastrophic, just tight." Tight. She remembered Daniel using that word once about a bond spread during a volatile quarter. Calmly. Predictively. "Is it because of the expansion?" she asked. Ethan gave a quick smile. "Expansion is vision. Without risk, there's no growth." "And without cash?" she pressed. His expression sharpened. "You are starting to sound like a board member. Maybe someone needs to." Silence gathered between them. This wasn't the man from hotel bars and whispered promises. This was a CEO under pressure, protective of his authority. "There's interest," he said finally, "from outside." "In what sense?" "Private equity. Some group looking to take minority stakes in mid-tier agencies." Olivia felt something cold slide down her spine. "Hostile?" "Nothing official," he paused. "Anonymous." Anonymous. The word lingered in her mind long after she left his office. That evening, she attended a networking reception in Soho. The room buzzed with curated laughter and cautious optimism. Conversations floated funding rounds, restructuring, cautious forecasts for Q3. She caught fragments. Over-leveraged, aggressive scaling, Herda vulnerable. She pretended not to hear the company's name woven between whispers. Back in Tribeca, Daniel reviewed the latest due diligence report. Caldwell Media's liabilities had grown faster than projected. Client attrition was accelerating. The downturn had done what ambition alone could not. It exposed fragility. "Board resistance?" Daniel asked during a secure call. "Mixed," his associate replied. "Some want capital infusion. Others fear loss of control." "And Caldwell?" "He believes he can outmaneuver it." Daniel allowed himself a brief, thoughtful silence. "Prepare the acquisition pathway. Friendly first, and if that fails, then we reconsider structure." He ended the call and walked to the window. Below, traffic streamed along the West Side Highway in patient lines of light. He thought of Olivia not sentimentally, but analytically. She had chosen momentum over stability. Now, momentum was faltering. Across town, she sat alone in Ethan's apartment, scrolling through financial news. A small article caught her attention. Harper Strategic Holdings expands East Coast portfolio. Her breath paused. Harper. The surname was common enough. The article listed no founding partner, just a discreet mention of aggressive but strategic positioning in distressed markets. She closed the tab. It meant nothing. Probably. When Ethan emerged from the bedroom, sleeves rolled, phone in hand, she looked up. "Are we safe?" she asked, more vulnerable than she intended. He frowned slightly. "Safe from what?" "From being swallowed." He crossed the room and kissed her temple. "No one swallows us. We are the ones who acquire." She tried to let that reassure her, but later, driving back to Scarsdale alone, she passed the darkened house she still legally shared with Daniel. The windows reflected her headlights like watchful eyes. Inside, everything remained immaculate. untouched. She stepped into the foyer and stood there longer than necessary. For the first time, she imagined a future where Ethan's firm faltered, where the promises of growth shrunk into restructuring memos and layoffs, where her name was attached not to triumph but to decline. And beneath that fear lay something quieter, a question she had avoided since the night Daniel left. What if she had misjudged which man was actually building something enduring? In Tribeca, Daniel closed a folder labeled Phase 1. His phone buzzed with a confirmation email. Preliminary board outreach initiated. He did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply adjusted the timeline in his calendar. Outside, Manhattan pulsed with ambition and anxiety in equal measure. Inside, two separate lives moved toward the same inevitable intersection. Neither would be able to pretend much longer that this was just about love. The ballroom at the pier overlooked Central Park like a throne room disguised as elegance. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above round tables dressed in ivory linen. A muted jazz trio played near the stage, while waiters floated between clusters of executives holding fluted glasses of champagne. The invitation had described it as a strategic partnership celebration. Olivia knew better. It was a rescue dressed as expansion. Coldwell Media's logo rotated on a large digital screen behind the podium, now paired with a second name she had seen more frequently in financial whispers, Harper Strategic Holdings. Ethan stood beside her, posture rigid beneath a tailored tuxedo. "This is optics," he murmured. "Narrative control. We frame it as growth." "And is it?" she asked. He didn't answer immediately. Across the room, investors gathered in small, deliberate circles. Olivia scanned faces, searching for reassurance. Instead, she found calculation. "Have you met the principal?" she asked Ethan quietly. "Harper doesn't do press," he said, jaw tightening. "Prefers discretion." Harper. The surname landed heavier tonight than it had weeks ago. Lights dimmed slightly as the event host approached the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," the woman began smoothly, "tonight marks an exciting new chapter for Coldwell Media. In a rapidly shifting market, strategic alignment is everything." Applause, polite and measured. Olivia felt her pulse in her throat. "And now it's my pleasure to introduce the managing partner representing Harper Strategic Holdings." There was a subtle pause, not long enough to be theatrical, just long enough to rearrange the air in the room. Daniel Harper. For a fraction of a second, Olivia thought she had misheard. Then she saw him. He stepped onto the stage with unhurried composure, dressed in a dark suit that fit him with understated precision. No flamboyance, no arrogance, just presence. The room shifted toward him instinctively. Ethan went still beside her. Olivia's fingers tightened around her clutch. Daniel adjusted the microphone slightly, not nervously, simply practically. He looked out at the audience with calm familiarity, as if he had stood in rooms like this his entire life. "Good evening," he began, voice steady, resonant without strain. "Markets evolve. Companies evolve. Leadership must evolve with them." There was no glance in her direction, no acknowledgement, only professionalism. "Harper Strategic believes in long-term value," he continued. "Not spectacle, not short-term leverage, but sustainable growth built on disciplined strategy." The words were not accidental, they were surgical. Olivia felt heat rise behind her ears. Around them, executives nodded appreciatively. Someone near the bar whispered, "That's the guy who turned around 3 West Coast firms last year." Ethan's expression hardened. "He never disclosed majority control," he muttered. "Did you ask?" Olivia replied softly, eyes still fixed on the stage. Daniel spoke about restructuring not as takeover, but as recalibration. He mentioned collaborative leadership, operational refinement, renewed capital discipline. He never once used the word rescue. Applause followed, fuller this time. When he stepped down from the stage, people moved toward him, not out of obligation, but gravity. Olivia watched as hands extended, as smiles widened, as respect flowed toward him in a current she had once insisted he lacked. He had not become louder, the room had simply learned to listen. Ethan exhaled sharply. "This changes things." "Yes," she said, almost to herself. "It does." Daniel was eventually cornered by a group of investors near the back of the ballroom. He answered questions with measured clarity, never overselling, never defensive. When his gaze finally lifted and met Olivia's across the room, he did not flinch. Recognition passed between them, nothing more. She moved toward him before she could reconsider. The crowd parted slightly as she approached. "Daniel," she said. He turned fully then, polite, composed. "Olivia." No bitterness, no warmth, just her name. "I didn't realize," she began, aware of how thin the sentence sounded. "There was no reason you would," he replied. Ethan appeared at her side, tension radiating from him. Congratulations, he said tightly, on the acquisition. Daniel inclined his head. It's a partnership, for now. The phrase carried layers. Olivia studied him closely. The restraint she once mistook for passivity now looked like control. Not reactive control, but deliberate. You knew, she said quietly, so only he could hear. I knew a great many things, he answered evenly. Before I asked you to leave? His gaze held hers without hostility. Timing matters. The chandelier light caught in his eyes, not cold but clear. Behind them, the Caldwell Media logo rotated again, smaller now, beside Harper Strategic's emblem. Ethan was already being summoned by a board member. Olivia stood suspended between two versions of power, one she had chosen for its heat, and one she had dismissed for its quiet. Why tonight? She asked. Daniel's expression didn't change. Because this was the right moment. For the first time since the dinner in Scarsdale, she felt truly exposed, not by a message on a screen, but by her own miscalculation. The power dynamic had not reversed with cruelty, it had reversed with patience, and that was infinitely more devastating. The gala dissolved into smaller conversations, then into departures. By the time the ballroom had thinned to hotel staff clearing glasses and folding programs, Olivia was still standing near the edge of the room, watching Daniel sign something on a tablet handed to him by an associate. He did not look hurried. He did not look triumphant. He looked exactly as he had in their kitchen in Scarsdale, measured, attentive, aware. When he finally stepped away from the remaining cluster of investors, she followed him into the corridor outside the ballroom. The carpet muffled their footsteps. The hum of Manhattan traffic filtered faintly through tall windows overlooking Fifth Avenue. Daniel. He stopped before reaching the elevators. Yes. The single word was neither invitation nor dismissal. I need to understand something, she said. He waited. Her throat tightened despite the rehearsed composure she had perfected in boardrooms. When did you start building this? A long time ago. Before... She couldn't finish the sentence. Yes, he said gently. Before. The hallway felt narrower. You were working at that firm in Stamford, she said almost accusingly. You complained about commute times, about client calls. I worked there, he replied. I also worked elsewhere. Why didn't you tell me? He considered her carefully. You never asked what I was building. You asked what I was earning. The words were not cruel. That made them harder to deflect. I thought we told each other everything, she said. We told each other what fit the life we thought we had. Silence stretched between them. She searched his face for anger, for vindication, for something sharp she could respond to. Instead, she found restraint. You knew about Ethan, she said quietly. Yes. The confirmation landed without spectacle. For how long? Long enough. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Why didn't you confront me? You would have denied it, he said calmly, or justified it. That's not fair. It's accurate. She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. Images flickered late nights, guarded screens, the dinner at the Millers, the way she had pivoted instantly from shame to critique. You let me ask you to leave, she whispered. I did. Why? The question carried more than curiosity, it carried disbelief. Because the moment you needed me to fight for you, he said evenly, you had already chosen someone else. That's not, she faltered. I just wanted to feel seen. I saw you, he replied. I just didn't perform it. She exhaled shakily. So this is revenge? He shook his head once. If it were revenge, Ethan wouldn't still have a job. The bluntness startled her. This is business, he continued. His firm was over-leveraged. The market corrected. I offered structure. And the timing? She pressed. Announcing it like that? The board chose the format. But you agreed? Yes. There it was again. Choice. Deliberate. Controlled. You embarrassed him, she said. I didn't send that message to your tablet at dinner, he replied softly. The memory cut cleanly through her. She looked away first. I was wrong, she said finally. The admission sounded unfamiliar in her own voice. About you. In what way? I thought you were small. The word felt almost childish now. Content to stay in the background, afraid to risk anything. I risked plenty, he said. Just not publicly. She studied him again, the posture, the quiet authority. It had been there all along, only she had measured it against louder men. Why didn't you tell me after I asked you to leave? She asked. Why let me believe you were just walking away? Because I was, he said. From us. The finality in his tone wasn't harsh. It was settled. She swallowed. And now? Now I'm ensuring an investment succeeds. That's all? He met her eyes fully. What would you like it to be? The question exposed something raw inside her. In the distance, an elevator chimed. I don't know, she admitted. For the first time that night, vulnerability flickered across her face without defense. I thought choosing ambition meant choosing strength, she said. But I think I confused volume with power. Daniel's expression softened, not with triumph, but with something quieter. Ambition isn't the problem, he said. Disrespect is. The word lingered between them. And I disrespected you, she whispered. Yes. There was no raised voice, no accusation layered on top, just acknowledgement. Down the hall, Ethan's voice echoed faintly in conversation with a board member. The sound felt distant, almost irrelevant. Olivia stood in front of the man she had once asked to leave his own home and realized she had never truly measured him. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. Good, Daniel replied gently, because this isn't about forgiveness. Then, what is it about? Consequences. The elevator doors opened behind him. He stepped backward into the car, maintaining eye contact as the space widened between them. Good night, Olivia. The door slid closed. She remained in the hallway long after the indicator light descended floor by floor. For the first time since the affair began, she understood the full architecture of what she had dismantled. Not a weak man, a patient one. And patience, she was beginning to realize, was the most dangerous form of power. The restructuring memo went out on a Monday morning. By noon, half the office knew who would stay and who would leave. Caldwell Media was no longer Eaton's in any meaningful sense. Titles remained for optics. Authority did not. Olivia sat in her glass-walled office overlooking 6th Avenue, rereading the internal announcement signed by Dania Harper, managing partner. The language was measured, precise, vision-oriented. Not a single line could be read as personal. Eaton hadn't come in that day. Rumors circulated quietly, bore pressure, renegotiated equity, performance contingencies. The man who once filled rooms now moved through corridors with forced calm, answering to oversight he used to dismiss. For Olivia, the shift was subtler but sharper. Colleagues watched her differently. Not hostile, just aware. She had once been aligned with power through proximity to Eaton. Now that proximity looked unstable, and Daniel was no longer an abstraction. He was the axis around which the company turned. 2 weeks after the gala, she received a short email. Subject: Closure of personal matters. Location: Tribeca, 7 p.m. No embellishment, no emotional framing. She almost didn't go, but she did. Daniel's apartment felt exactly as she imagined. Minimal, deliberate, impersonal. A space designed for transition rather than memory. He opened the door himself. Come in. No awkwardness, no embrace. She stepped inside and noticed there were still no photographs on the walls. You wanted to discuss the settlement? She asked. Yes. They sat across from each other at a small dining table. Papers were neatly arranged in 2 identical stacks. The house will be sold, he said. Proceeds divided as agreed. Your equity package remains untouched. You're being generous. It's contractual. She studied his face. Is that what we are now? A contract? We always were, he replied quietly. We just called it something else. The honesty didn't sting, it clarified. I spoke to legal, she said. I'm not contesting anything. He nodded once. Silence settled, not tense, just full. I ended it, she said suddenly. With Ethan? Yes. Daniel didn't react outwardly. It wasn't because of you, she added quickly, or because of the acquisition. It just didn't survive reality. Affairs rarely do, he said evenly. She flinched at the word. Affair, clean, unromantic. I thought passion meant depth, she continued. I thought ambition meant compatibility. And now? Now I think I was afraid of being ordinary. He leaned back slightly, considering her. There's nothing wrong with wanting more, he said, but more of what matters. She looked down at her hands. Do you hate me? No. Why not? Because hate requires attachment. The statement landed with quiet finality. She inhaled slowly. Is there any version of this where we try again? He didn't answer immediately. Outside, traffic moved steadily along the street below. The city did not pause for personal reckoning. You didn't just betray me, he said at last. You redefine me without asking. Her eyes filled despite her effort to contain it. You decided I was small, he continued, and you treated me accordingly. That changes something fundamental. I was wrong, she whispered. Yes. The word was gentle, absolute. I don't need revenge, he said, and I don't need reconciliation. I needed distance. And now? Now I have clarity. She absorbed that. In the week since the gala, she had replayed every moment, the dinner message, the garage, the way he had said, I'm listening. She had mistaken composure for emptiness, silence for absence. It had never been either. You scared me, she admitted softly, that night, on stage. Why? Because I realized you were never behind me, you were just quiet. A faint, almost imperceptible shift touched his expression. Not pride, not satisfaction, recognition. We wanted different kinds of lives, he said. That doesn't make either of us villains, but it does make us incompatible. The truth hurt because it wasn't dramatic, it was mature. She stood slowly, understanding the conversation had reached its natural end. At least tell me one thing, she said at the door. He waited. When you walked out of that house, did you hope I stop you? For the first time that evening, something human and unguarded flickered across his face. Yes, he said. The admission stole the air from her lungs. But I knew you wouldn't, he added. She nodded, tears slipping free now without resistance. He opened the door. This time, she was the one stepping into the hallway alone. Goodbye, Olivia. Not cold, not tender. Final. As she walked toward the elevator, she understood what his silence had truly been. Not weakness, not manipulation. A boundary. Downstairs, the city lights reflected in the glass facade of the building, turning her reflection into something fragmented but still standing. Inside the apartment, Daniel closed the door and stood still for a long moment. He did not feel victorious. Power had shifted. Reputation restored. Control secured. But some losses do not reverse when fortunes do. He walked back to the table, gathered the remaining papers, and turned off the lights. Outside, Manhattan continued, restless, ambitious, indifferent. And somewhere between silence and consequence, two lives moved forward, separately.